see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Coast to Coast. I am your host, Pags. I have with me McLovin. Bo is on his way back, at least we think, from Hawaii. He should be back on tomorrow as normal. And we may even have Stat Guy make an appearance here later on in the show. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Bo was telling us in the group chat, he said, yeah, I'm living 87 degrees, and I'm going to land at 27 degrees. And I said, yep. Remember that song, Back to Life, Back to Reality? Yep. Time to get back to reality, Bo. Get off them sandy beaches and get to stormy Seattle.
Yep, and we missed him. Yeah, a little
bit.
bit. Not too much, but a little bit. And I am down in beautiful Miami, where the temperature down here is a lovely 80 degrees.
Nice.
Unfortunately, there's no way for me to be able to do this show anywhere. I couldn't find anywhere to be able to do the show because I didn't get in till very late last night. It wound up being such a mess trying to getting in here and then getting my rental car, which I didn't wind up getting because that was such a mess the way that was working out. So I didn't get in here until very late. I went and grabbed something to eat, and then I just was like, all right, I'll try to figure it out in the morning. And so I'm doing it from what looks like my apartment.
I'm about to say, was your apartment traveling with you?
Always the same place. It's amazing how often I can find a place that looks just like mine.
Best mate ever.
So, but we have to start out today. Obviously, the biggest news of yesterday was the retirement of Jason Kelce. And you can say whatever you want about the Eagles, about their fans, and everything else. Whether you like Jason Kelce, whether you don't like him, whether you are a Swiftie and happen to like him from just due to proxy because Taylor Swift's dating his brother, or the fact that you follow his podcast, which is probably right now the best podcast or the most watched podcast in the world. This guy was really, I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I would almost say that he earned that over the last 2 years. That it was not something that was an automatic even
Right.
2 years ago.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Jason Kelce, how effective would the tush push really have been? Let's be honest. He was obviously the anchor of that, formation, which was amazing. And again, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I hate Jason Kelce, but I respect him as a person because he's a great human being. I kind of thought the end was coming for him though when he was taking his shirt off and jumping off the balcony. I wondered myself. I said, you know what? Either A, he is just that crazy, or B, he just doesn't care if he hurts himself and misses a spring training.
So actually, I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think that it was part of he had said in his podcast, and I am an avid watcher of New Heights podcasts. So I lived for a short amount of time in Cleveland's Heights. Yeah. So I know the area that he's talking about. I did a lot of work in Cleveland for a while. I used to go to the flats, the old flats back in the day. It really was, a fun spot to be at, and Cleveland was really a good time. That all being said, he really did epitomize a city. Like he took on the persona of Philadelphia. And it made me wonder, like, because he was from Cleveland, how how much that played. And I tell you, I love Cleveland. Cleveland gets a bad rap from a lot of people too, for a lot of different reasons, that it's a dirty city, lots of crime in Cleveland, blah blah blah. You know what? Lots of cities have lots of crime.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be a bad part of the city. But Cleveland's Clevelandites, or people from Cleveland, are very similar to people from Philadelphia, and very similar to people from Detroit. These are all working, blue collar
Yeah.
cities that these guys
Yeah.
get up to work every day and they do their thing. And I don't know that he would have been able to have the same persona and the same love that he gets now in this city without having that upbringing.
Right. So
You know,
I don't know much about Jason Kelsey in terms of where he was from. Is he? So you're saying is he? So he's from the Philly area?
no, he's
Like
from
Kelsey?
Cleveland Heights,
Oh, he's
which
from.
is a
So Jason
suburb of
Kelsey is from
Cleveland.
Cleveland Heights. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is a suburb of Cleveland. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to tell a not so happy story here from Cleveland Heights. So I used to install computer systems for Kmart.
Yeah.
And this is like, I got out of the Navy, and that was one of the first things that I did. And I'm in Cleveland Heights, which is a it's like I said, it's a suburb of Cleveland, and some
Okay.
of it's good,
Okay.
some of it's not so good.
Right.
And we're in the store in Cleveland Heights. I am up in the rafters. So there
Okay.
is a ladder. There's a rolling ladder that is 25 feet in the air. So it's a big thing here.
Right.
And I'm running cable. So like that's kind of what I was doing. I was in lead of the group, but I was running the cable to get it back to the office and stuff like that. And he in comes somebody as I'm out up at the front. Somebody came into the store, shot two people, and
Oh,
left.
damn.
This is at a Kmart in Cleveland Heights. I came down from that ladder, and I said, "Okay, we're done for the day."
Pack your stuff. No, leave the stuff. Let's just go.
That's exactly it. Leave it all right where it's at.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. We're leaving today,
Yeah.
and we're not going to go to. We're today now. It's Miller time right now, and it was like,
Literally.
yeah, it was like
Literally.
11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the daytime, and
Wow.
I called up my boss and said, just witnessed the shooting. I'm leaving. So Cleveland, that was my
Wow.
first idea of Cleveland Heights. And this is, we're talking back in the 90s now, whole different world now than it is then, was back then. There's not even Kmart's around anymore.
Yeah.
But but that was my first, you know, thought of
Experience.
Cleveland Heights. Yeah, my first experience in Cleveland Heights. And not everywhere in Cleveland was like that, but it was just that one specific.
Okay.
So, and that's where he was from. So,
Interesting.
and he may have been, you know, 8 or 9 when that happened. So it's
Right.
not like he was old enough. I mean, this guy's only 35 years old, 30, just about to turn 36. So it was such a long time ago. This was like 98.
Right.
So, I mean, it's definitely been some time, but, it's like, but that type of personality transcended to Philadelphia. And
Wow.
watching him, that retirement speech, I knew right away, like, you don't have a press conference
Mhm.
to say you're staying.
Right.
And there was a piece of me that hoped he played the wolf, Wolf of Wall Street, where he's in the middle of talking and he's like, I'm not leaving. I'm staying.
Yeah.
But
And yeah, it was sad. Like Frankie was saying, Frankie said he's like, yeah, I knew when he started crying, it was not he was definitely gone.
the moment that he stepped out there, there was no
Yeah,
stopping it, and you knew. I mean, and he's going to be an Eagle forever.
of
Like
course.
if I was, like, first off, he lives in Philly now. He lives actually not that far away from me. in the grand
Right.
scheme of things. He's probably about 20 minutes away from me. And, they're about to have his fourth child. Kylie's pregnant
Yeah.
again, from what I heard. I don't know if they made that announcement yet, but I heard that she's pregnant, and this time it's a boy. Because I think they were going to pump out they were going to, setting up franchises until they had a male child. But, um, and ultimately, it's like if I was Jeffrey Lurie, the first thing that I would do is name him the new vice president
Yeah.
of the Eagles Autism Foundation, because there's nobody better at dealing with the public and
Right.
raising money for charity than Jason Kelsey. And that alone is why I would, if I was him, that's what I would. If I was Jeffrey Lurie and I own the Eagles, he's retiring, and we have a new vice president. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Of this organization.
I was just gonna
So
ask you, like, what do you thought he might do now that he's retiring? I was surprised that he would be like maybe like a offensive lineman coach or something of that nature.
no, he doesn't need to be an offensive lineman coach, because they have Stoutland, and
Yeah.
Stoutland is the best. He is the absolute best. There's a reason why Jason Kelsey was as good as he was. I was looking on Instagram today, and of course, everything on Instagram is a repeat of the video and of his retirement speech, if you will. And then I watched Baldy bring up his first game as an Eagle, and how he was getting to the second level, and how he was just moving the line even in his first game. And I remember the
Yeah.
story, listening to Howie Roseman talk about how the offensive line coach back then, who wasn't Jeff Stoutland, said, uh, with Jason Kelsey, is like, he's going to be our starting center. And he's like, really? I mean, he's just he's a rookie. We don't start rookies. They're like, he's going to start at center. And he's like, are you sure we want to do that? And he proved his worth right then.
Right.
You obviously, he's going to be most recently known for the tush push,
Yeah.
and how that was really 92% play. It's like there's not any play in football that typically works even more than 65% of the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that play was 92%. So much so that they're not even able to get rid of it. They don't want to get
Yeah.
rid of it. They
Yeah.
want other teams to kind of do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a very well designed play because it was like you said that type of success rate, and I am sad to see Jason Kelsey go. I mean, honestly, I mean he's a young guy, he's a very passionate guy still. It looks like the guy can play the game. Almost like a Bruce Matthews. If you remember Bruce Matthews, that guy played what 20 something seasons, and never even missed a damn game. And I kind of see Jason Kelsey being like a Bruce Matthews type of player in the fact that he, his body is in well in shape where he can play longer
Yeah,
than
I
that.
mean, think about this.
You
6
know?
of the last 7 years, he was first team All Pro,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's including this year. And I know that he's probably frustrated that how the team ended, and that had a little bit. It was probably that alone which made him consider staying.
yeah,
But beyond that, I think that was it. It was with the potential of possibly going out on top
yeah,
that he wanted to maybe stay for one more season. I think when all was said and done, it's like when all the aches and pains go away, and that takes a few weeks. Like I know, because I'm dealing with my back. I
yeah,
mean, I'm 51 years old. I hurt my back a week and a half ago, and I'm still wearing like heating pads on it. Like right now,
yeah,
as we speak, I'm wearing heating pads, just because I want to be able to try to get some motion and just not feel the pain as much.
mhm,
So I got to imagine that when all that pain starts to dull some, and then you realize what level of dull you're dealing with, you know, that's probably where it all lies. It's like that
yeah,
there's a regiment that he has to deal with just on a daily basis, just to function. You know, I take 800 milligram Motrin a day. I take a multivitamin, specific vitamins, and anything else that I need to take, like any other of my medications, just to be able to do it at 51, to be as
Right.
active as I am. You know what I mean? And I'm still
Yeah.
pretty active, even with my back and everything. I don't care. You're 50 years old. You're getting knees replaced and stuff like that. It's like it's,
Yeah.
life takes a toll on our bodies. And for him to go out this way, I mean, I know it's a sad for Eagles fans that we never want to get to the point where he was going to go. But then again, I think of Jason Kelsey, not Jason Kelsey, Jason Peters,
Yeah.
and how he can't get away from the game. In that I feel that Jason Peters is a Hall of Famer, but still, the fact that he's still playing and he
Right.
can't leave the NFL, I feel like that he's been 4 years too long, maybe even
Yeah.
5 years too long,
Yeah.
and that was the problem. Like usually players play 2 years too long. Jason Kelsey did not do that. He's leaving on the top of his game. He probably
Yeah.
this year may have been the first year of the 2 years too long. Yeah, but he's still playing at the top of his game.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the fact that he took, and I'd be willing to bet if you guys haven't seen it, watch the Shaq podcast where they had Jason Kelsey on. And I'd be willing to bet that it was that podcast that was the nail in the coffin. When Shaq started talking about how he lost some of his family because of him staying in the league, and it's like sometimes you have to be the leader of what's yours and not the leader of somebody else's, and
Yeah.
that's a real statement that
Yeah.
you got to be able to realize your family still does come first. And Jason Kelsey is like, I thought that he would stay one more year because I thought that his kids were a little too young still, that he still had some more left in the tank, and that he's ready to be a dad. But I thought that he would just still had one more go at it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And sometimes it's good to leave the game when you're still able to function well. I mean, he may, I'm sure he's going to have pain for the rest of his life because football is a very violent thing. But at least I think he looks like he's able to. I mean, look, if you're jumping down a damn fly, I guess you're in good enough shape where you're going to be able to live a good life and
He
not
didn't
be
jump that far. Let's face that. The window was open.
I
He
don't
jumped
know.
down
I don't.
4 feet.
Yeah,
He
I'm just
jumped down
saying,
4 feet because he
but
was able. It was up to his waist, so it's not like it was that big of a jump. So I mean,
let's agree. Let's agree on though that if you're even jumping over a wall, you're still in fairly good shape to leave the game, and you're going to be okay. Is what I'm getting at. It may not have been a 10-foot drop, but it was enough of a drop that if I'm not in good shape, I'm not going to attempt it. Let's just put it that way. Okay,
I
a
understand.
51-year-old Jay with jacked up knee isn't even thinking about climbing that wall. He's thinking about staying on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, Paul. I know I heard that he definitely, and obviously Kylie said that he was trying to do everything he can. I would not be surprised if the NFL Network or the NFL itself hires him to
Yeah.
be the liaison to tailgate with every team to do
Oh,
some of their
absolutely.
rituals.
Absolutely.
So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up back in Buffalo and does go through a table. That he goes out to Kansas City and does, cook a pig on a spit, you know what I mean, and stuff like
Right.
that.
I
Those
love
are
to
some
see
of
him
the
at
things.
Lambeau. I'll tell you, that's one of the best tailgates I've been to was at Lambeau Field, and yeah, they have a great tailgating section out there. I don't know about Houston's because I just moved back here, so I haven't really had a chance to go out to a Texans stadium to see what their tailgate looks like, but I imagine it's going to be a lot of barbecue.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, Seattle's not going. So if he played for Seattle, then I would definitely have retired. But the Eagles aren't so far off as you would think. I hear you guys are getting back Russell Wilson since he got canned. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we're still
Yes,
talking
we
about
will.
Jason Kelsey.
Yes,
You
we
want to try to
will.
throw a shot at the Eagles? Get out of here, Robert. Get out of here.
Hey, he was early for April 1st. It's not today, Rob. It's April 1st. That's Hater Day. April 1st.
So, and yes, all you have to do is go. It's in our info now. So save that link. You could get on April 1st on the Hater Show. We actually have it listed and it is up. So feel free, because I'm going to start telling everybody. Yeah, come on out. Yeah.
But
And do
you
our
know,
thing.
back to Jason though. Very rare do you see guys like him or Bruce Matthews come along in the league that are just that effective and good at what they do, man. And it's sad to see him go. I mean, I don't like the Eagles, but I did like Jason Kelsey, and I like the Kelsey flag. I like Travis Kelsey too. They're just relatable people. Like, that play the sport. You can relate to them, or you feel like you're confident. Like I feel like I can go up to Travis Kelsey in a barbecue and be like, "Hey man, did you get a beer?" He just seems that friendly or that personable.
Yeah, and that's so. I mean, I love telling Jason Kelsey stories. Obviously, anybody who knows my uniform, the pants that I wear of my jersey when it's shoulder pads and wearing the football pants, they're Jason Kelsey's pants. And I, and I bought them. You could buy them through Fanatics, because every piece of equipment is actually for sale from the NFL. It's just, that's part of what they do. That being said, back in 2013, I tried to get my brother a jersey, and I wanted to get him a Jason Kelsey jersey, and I looked everywhere to try to find one. I couldn't find one, and it was 2013 still, so it wasn't like you could call over to China and get those yet. Like it wasn't that set up yet.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to different stores and I'm trying to do everything I can because my brother was an offensive lineman. And I'm saying that Jason Kelsey is going to be the guy. He's going to never leave, is what I said. He's never going to leave.
Right.
So I wind up going to this one store, and its local store has tons of jerseys, but didn't have Jason Kelsey. And the guy tells me, he's like, listen, you may have a better chance of emailing him or calling him and asking if you could get one of his jerseys rather than trying to find a store that's going to have his jersey, because ain't nobody going to have it at all.
Right.
And then he's like, listen, he's like, I got this one place that you could go and, you could email or buy it online and they will do whatever you want. And it was a Chinese place. It was one of those first things, and it took a year to get it. It was like, so I ordered it in 2013. It came for the 2014 year for like November, and I tried to get it for Christmas. It was supposed to be a triple X. It was as big, it could barely fit me. It was an extra large. The triple X was an extra large, but they did spell Kelsey right. They got the numbers right and all this stuff. So I couldn't even give it to my brother. And ultimately, I still have the jersey. Of course, all the letters are falling off now. Like it was all like glued on and stuff. It was definitely so cheaply made. But I was the first one that I knew of with a Kelsey jersey.
Right.
And then like, because I had it for 2 years, and ultimately then he did the speech. And I remember making a video. I may even have it maybe on Facebook if you go back to it. And after that speech, I put the jersey on and I said, I may be the first one with this jersey, but I know that I won't be the last one, because I bet you he becomes one of the best-selling jerseys,
Yeah.
In Eagles history after that speech.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. You know what I mean? He was actually one of the best-selling jerseys this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's usually 13 years. That's like right on the cusp of enough body of work to get into the Hall of Fame. But Jason Kelsey, man, like you said, he is, as well as he's played. I would not be surprised either that he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I wouldn't, just over his body of work, and getting that Super Bowl did kind of put him over the top in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually, as I look at this, as I look at my cover photo, it's me, shaking his hands after the Kansas City game,
Uh-huh.
and I put that up. I put that up in November. It's like, and that's what I have as my stream photo. So
Yeah.
it's like it's. I mean, obviously, it's he's been such a great influence uh, throughout all of football. Not just uh, he's become like America's dad.
Yeah.
Like he's become like America's father, not America, not like like, but yes, he's come like America's dad, where he's a football player, he's a family man, he raises money for charity. He's what
Mhm.
most people aspire to,
Right.
and that's amazing. That's an amazing thing to say. You know what I mean? It's not the easiest thing in the
Well,
world to
especially
do.
in today's when you look at today's athletes and today's sports athletes and what it actually has become, you got to admit it's kind of gotten away from the being the role model for your kids. It's almost kind of they've gone in their own different direction. But there are still a few out there, like the Jason Kelsey's of the world, that you can say, God, this is somebody I'd want my kid to emulate, right? Or something that I would like to see them aspire to be, not just as a football player, but just the way he conducts himself, the way he talks, the way he acts. He does all the, like you said, he's a general philanthropist type of guy, but he keeps himself out of trouble. He does the right things, good family guy. We all want our children to be like that, right?
And not only that, he's a fairly smart business guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I from what I'm told, I hear he's got his fingers in a number of different businesses that we don't know anything about. But I know that he was going to do that backyard football. That backyard football is going to like kind of make a resurgence here with a couple of extra football players, because I think that's something that'll be monstrous. It'll be huge once he comes back out with that, especially since all the Swifties are going to come out to
Right.
play, buy that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um I really do wish him well, and I hope that he remains part of the spotlight of what's good about Philadelphia. And I think there isn't many people who can epitomize what the Philadelphia fan and the Philadelphian stands for. And I feel that he's absolutely one of them. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to represent Philly. Trust me, I know. You know, I
Yeah.
said, so much so that we had to put together the hater show. You know what I mean? That sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous, but that's a real thing, because I represent Philly and there's haters out there, and even in Philly. But to have that universal, you know, love from everybody around you is really an amazing thing, and I think that's not something that can be taken lightly.
Let me ask you a question. I know you have a good pulse, obviously, of the Philadelphia people. I mean, that's where you are. That's who you are, right? I just gotta ask the question, man, and I hope I don't get any backlash. But you know, Kelsey, and I get it. First of all, what I'm about to say, I totally get it. His brother obviously is Travis Kelsey, clearly the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift. He puts on the Kansas City jersey. He's all about Kansas City. But I also know the Philadelphia fan base is a tough fan base. Dude, was there any backlash at all when he was so immersed in the Philly culture or in the Kansas City culture during that time period, or were they okay with it?
He wasn't really immersed in it, and again, so he's supporting his brother,
Yeah.
and he brought his wife, and the wife wears Cincinnati stuff,
Yeah.
doesn't wear Kansas City stuff,
Yeah.
and that is what saved on any type of backlash, because she's like, I'm Philly, I'm an Eagles fan. There ain't no way I'm wearing a Chiefs thing whatsoever. Screw you. You know, that's what and that came from his wife, and
Yeah.
that and the fact that he was like, okay, Whatever you say, honey. That is, I thought that's what kind of did all of that. Like
Yeah,
he's able to kind of do some of those things outside of Philly because he brings Philly with him.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I did.
It's like
Absolutely.
that's like there it is. Okay, now you got your wife there, and she is representing every Philadelphia fan. Like, all right, you're supporting your brother. That's great. I'm going to support your brother, but I ain't supporting the Chiefs.
Hey, good for her. Hey, that might have been her way of saying, "Look, you do what you do, but I'm going to save this so we're not getting totally backlash. I'm going out there and
No, 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 no,
representing."
no, no, no. She's an Eagles fan. She
Oh,
ain't
she's
wearing Chiefs
true.
stuff.
Okay,
She ain't
okay.
wearing Chief
Well,
stuff.
that's what I'm saying. You had the pulse on the Eagles, so I'm asking. Okay,
Yeah, so she's not ever going to wear any other team. As she shouldn't. I
right.
wouldn't. Like, let me change that. Let me change that. I do certain things out of respect. Like, when I go to Pittsburgh, if I'm traveling to Pittsburgh, the one time I will wear my Willie Stargell jersey, if I'm going to a baseball game or if I'm going to a football game, when I'm traveling, I'll wear the Mean Joe Green or I'll wear Willie Stargell. And both of those have significance to me. Willie Stargell hit the furthest home run in Veteran Stadium.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I went with Philly Sports Trips and we took a bus out to Pittsburgh to go for a weekend series, and I'm wearing Willie Stargell, I got some flack for it. But I also got, now that's respect. You know what I mean? Because it's still my state. You know what I mean? So I'm showing that little
Right.
bit of
Right.
respect historically. It's a historic thing, not necessarily
Right.
I like the Pirates or I like the Steelers. You know what I mean? Wearing the
Right.
Mean Joe Green jersey, I have both of those jerseys because Mean Joe Green. I have the Mean
Oh, I
Joe
love
Green
Mean
jersey
Joe
because
Green. Who
I
doesn't like
used
Mean
to
Joe Green? Come on,
I
I
used to
like Mean
tell
Joe
everybody
Green.
I was the kid in the commercial.
What?
So I used to tell everybody that I was the kid in the commercial.
That's awesome. No, yeah, everybody loves Mean Joe Green. And Ed Too Tall Jones. I remember that one too. Jesus.
Yeah, well, I would never wear a Too Tall Jones jersey.
No, I wouldn't because it's
However,
Dallas. You
I
would. You
do
would
have
never
I
wear
do have a
Dallas.
good story. I have a good story about Too Tall Jones. You know, talking about giving certain respect.
Right.
I'm at the draft. My very first draft that I've gone to outside of Philly. Like I went to the
Right.
Philly draft, but I'm at my first draft as the Philly sports guy
Mhm.
in Nashville. And I'm out, I'm in the golden circle or whatever you want to call it there.
Right.
And I'm out getting a beer in the area. And it's me and the Dallas Cowboys super fan, True
Okay.
Blue,
Yeah.
and Ed Too Tall Jones. And it's only the three of us.
Oh
And
wow.
there he is. And and it's like I said, I just met True Blue, so I didn't really know him like that. And he's like in awe because
This
this was
is
his
guy.
father's favorite guy. This is
Yeah.
his favorite guy growing up. He
Right.
needs a picture with
Right.
him, and he
Yeah.
needs somebody to take the picture. And I'm the only one standing there. So I'm like, listen, I'm going to take this picture. But every time you show this picture, you got to say this was taken by an Eagles fan. And he did, and he said it, and he still appreciates it. And it's probably why we became friends, as good of friends as we are, with
Nice.
me
No,
and True.
that's a great way to make a friendship.
You know what I mean? Because it's like the first time I ever met him, first time I ever met True Blue, I'm like, here, we're gonna take a picture, get in the pose. You know what I mean? And it's him and me in a fighting pose. First time I ever met him, didn't even ask him his name, no nothing. I'm seeing a Dallas Cowboys super fan, get in the pose, somebody's gonna take the picture. And I still have that picture. It's such an amazing picture. And it's the first one's always the best.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. It always is.
But
That's a great
that's
story.
and those are things like, so I give respect to the history.
Yeah.
of stuff. You know what I mean? You have to respect it because you don't know where you're going until you know where you've been. And even though that the Eagles sucked during those times, and Ed Too Tall Jones was the bane of the Eagles' existence in a lot of times, I was still going to give the respect to the fans and to him and take
Yeah.
that picture. And take that picture. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a goofball. I'm not going to be the one that's like, oh, I'm going to take a picture of me and say, ha ha, you're screwed. No, it's just it was a good picture, and it was good to meet him too. Like I shook his
Right.
hand too because obviously he is a legend in the game. The fact that he played for a team that I can't stand is still like if I met Roger Staubach, I've got something in common with him because he was
Yeah.
in the Navy.
Well, that's true. Roger was. A lot of people maybe not know that. That
So
time to be
I
alive.
mean, the fact that he was a cowboy, I hate it, but that's still on. That's still
He's still a
part of
good.
it all.
He's still a good shipmate. Still a
Exactly.
good shipmate. Which, by the way, you can't say that apparently anymore in the Navy. Can you believe that, Pags? They did away with that. You have to say something else, and I don't know what it is, but
Right.
can't say shipmate
I
no more.
We can't say shipmate no more.
No, apparently not. You can't say. You can't call them shipmate. It's something weird. Forget who it was that told me that. I got a friend of mine that's a realtor here, and her daughter's in the Navy, and they got something about it. It's weird. I don't know all the deep,
Yeah.
the details behind it, but like like for if you were like greeting other people, when you're in active duty uniform, and say, "Hey, what's up, shipmate?" Yeah, apparently that's not a thing now. That's gone by the wayside. I don't know what they're saying now. Sure as hell ain't seeming.
Yeah. No, it's. I listen. Back when I joined, it was like join the Navy, ride a wave, and that's what
I remember that.
female
Yeah.
shipmates were called. Yeah, they were called waves. So
Yeah,
it wasn't
I
always
remember that.
the best thing to say. There was a
Ah,
little bit of hazing involved in all this stuff, but. So,
part of
at
like I
Bo,
said,
we
now
look
the
forward
village
to seeing
people.
you back tomorrow. We do
Oh,
appreciate it.
bro.
Have a safe trip back. Wear something warm, and no no beads for McLovin.
They had nuts, but
You're nuts
well,
enough,
the kukui nuts. I think he said we can't get the koi bead. We can only get the kukui nuts. I think something like that.
right?
I don't know what the
So
hell a kukui nut
that
is.
is what it is. Hey, Brad, don't worry. We're going to be talking about all of that stuff in the next little bit, but we just want to finish up with Jason Kelsey. Like I said, it really is. Uh, it was a sad day. It was hard. It was hard to watch. It really was hard to watch. Uh, I was like, I, I'm I'm like, it's happening right at 1 o'clock, and
Yeah,
that's when I'm supposed to head to the airport. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm gonna be just a little bit late going to the airport. And then he's struggling to get first through the first three sentences. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, this is gonna be a long one. And then he says, yeah, I don't know how long this is gonna be. It's gonna be long. And I'm like, all righty, I guess I'm in for in for a penny, in for a pound.
But I mean, the one thing I like about that is at least a great guy like that, goes out with that team, doesn't go on to another team, doesn't throw on another jersey, goes out with the Eagles and rides it all the way to the end, which I love that. Like I said, obviously I'm a big Emmitt Smith fan. That was my time, and I love everything Emmitt, man. And when he left, I was crushed. And when I found out he was going to the Cardinals, it was even that much worse. And so I hated seeing Emmitt wear another jersey. So at least when Jason left, he left, wearing Eagle green. So that's a good thing.
Well, and the difference is that Dallas didn't want to keep him to get the record, and he wanted the record.
Yeah,
That's what it came down to.
I thought Dallas should have kept. That's one time I felt like Jerry got it wrong, and I mean, not that
Hey,
he
I
doesn't
felt
get
the
it wrong
same way.
more,
I
but
felt the same way when it happened with Brian Dawkins. Brian
yeah,
Dawkins going to Denver, for the last couple years of his contract was just not. It's just like, that's a
yeah,
bad move. That's a bad move.
yeah,
But it just showed that you can't always, like Allen Iverson, same situation. Like
yeah.
he wound up
Well,
going to
hell,
four
look at
different.
Olajuwon. I never thought Olajuwon was going to leave the Rockets. I thought he was going to, retire out with us and call it good. But of course he
Yeah,
goes
but
on to Toronto, played a little bit.
he wound up retiring for Toronto, but I think he was at
Yeah.
Philly, right? He went to Philly first.
Was that Olajuwon?
Yeah.
No, he did not. Was he drafted by y'all? No, he was
No,
drafted by us.
no,
So
you
we
drafted
drafted
by
him
you
number
guys. He
1.
came to Philly. Didn't Olajuwon go? Wasn't he part of the 2001 Sixers? Yeah, he was the center up against Shaq in 2001 with Allen Iverson.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, either way, he went to Toronto. I got mad at him when he left. When he went to Toronto. When he probably did go to Toronto, and maybe he went to the Sixers right after Toronto. But by that point, I mean, it was. I mean, I don't know what he was hanging around for. I think he's another one of the guys that just had a hard time hanging up the cleats and walking away. You know.
Now I'm checking. Now I want to make sure that it was.
Well, I've never heard of him playing with the Sixers, but after he went to Toronto, I got so mad at him.
So it was Theo Ratliff, and then they traded Theo Ratliff. And I want to say I thought it was Olajuwon, but I could be wrong because we lost 4-1 to the Mutombo. Yeah, my bad.
So yeah, I remember
It was
Mutombo
Dikembe
being
Mutombo.
with him. I thought I was losing my mind. You ever heard that? What's that
Yeah,
called?
that was in
Mandela
2001.
effect? I thought you were doing Mandela on me, Pags. I literally thought you were
Yeah,
doing Mandela
I knew it
on
was
me.
somebody, but wasn't Mutombo. Didn't Mutombo also come from Houston?
No, he
Did
played with
Mutombo also
Houston.
come from Houston?
He didn't come from us, but he
Yeah,
played.
he
Got
came from
traded to us.
Houston. He got traded
Oh
to
yeah.
you and
So he
then
left
got
Houston,
traded
and then he went.
to us
Yeah.
from Houston. That's what I
Right.
had to.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he did a little
and
fadeaway.
it was really tough. It was really tough to kind of watch some of that. You know what I mean? It's you know it's like, hey, this is it was
I don't think anybody
upsetting.
wanted him
It
to
was upsetting.
retire. Yeah, I think we all kind of
No,
related
because
to
you
the
still
Knicks,
felt he
though.
has stuff left in the tank.
Yeah,
But
but when you saw him walking off the field, though, I did kind of get a sense that maybe he might be done because it was just the way he was carrying. It was his demeanor. It just looked like he was sad, like he felt like maybe this is the last time I'm walking.
exactly. So, but that was really. Like I said, out of all the things that happened yesterday, that was probably the biggest thing that occurred. Followed followed soon thereafter by the Broncos releasing Wilson and killing their cap.
What a time to be alive! $85 million of dead cap money. What a time! Wilson
You know
always
what?
leaves everybody.
Take it. You got to take it and do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
do.
all right, we're going to lose it. It's $255 million. So now you're down to 170.
God. Oh. Can Sean Payton, what can he do with $170 million? I wonder. I wonder what he will turn out. Can he do a Belichick where he gets the most out of nothing?
Well, I mean,
I
I think? You know who I think, and it's a shame Bo's not here. Does Drew Lock
Uh-oh.
go back to Denver? Because that's where the money, like realistically, you could probably get him for like $25 million.
Yeah.
And you need a $25 million quarterback. Like that's what you need right now. 1 year, you're taking the hit because you gotta literally take everything down now. Like everything has got to go down to the minimum.
Right.
And you're going to have to kick lots of cans down the road here a little bit. So you're going to wind up eating some stuff. But hey,
Dare
listen,
you go to the UFL and see what you can pluck at cheaper
I don't
prices?
know the UFL. I don't think you need to do the UFL.
Yeah.
Like you could still could you possibly go? Was Jameis Winston with the Saints while he was there behind Drew Brees?
He was. Yeah, Sean Payton was grooming him before Sean Payton left.
See, he was listening. Yeah, I knew he wasn't too far away. He had to get that one.
Man, you leave for 1 day to go on vacation, you come back and you find out your boy's leaving. Wouldn't that be something? That would be something.
I mean, think about that now in very interesting sense. Now that he got dropped,
Yeah.
does Atlanta take him instead of
And
maybe
Atlanta needs
trading?
somebody.
Does Atlanta
Mm,
still does that screw up Chicago? Think about this because it's not
mm.
Atlanta that gets screwed up with that. It
Yeah.
becomes Atlanta has now another option with Russell Wilson. And
Right.
because he's got all this money, and because he's a little bit of damaged goods here, you could possibly get Russell Wilson for $30 million.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not so unrealistic now. Say, listen, we're going to sign you for a 1 year, 30 million with, hey, listen, you get us to the playoffs, $2 million bonus. You get us to you know, the NFC championship game, another million bonus. You get us to the Super Bowl, another million. You win another Super Bowl, another 2 million. You could get like $7 million in bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
If
not
I
do
was
that?
Russell Wilson, I'd jump on that. Jump on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's play these games. Especially when you're going to a team that actually could make the playoffs with a vagabond quarterback.
Well, you take that 30, you ball out, you get the bonuses for that year. Now you're up for another contract. Well, you ain't give me a 30 million. I'm gonna keep them bonuses, but you will give me, it's gonna be a lot more than 30 million. We're gonna go back to where it was, because now I've done shown you what I can do, and I've shown you what I can bring you.
Right.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of money out there for him that could hurt Chicago. You're right.
So, but by doing that, if he was to go to Atlanta, now all of a sudden, now it goes back to the conversation we had last week. Chicago now is stuck in a position. Do you try to still trade him? Because Atlanta is really the only team that's really biting on Justin Fields.
Right.
And like I
Right.
said, if you go to draft day with Justin Fields, you keep him. You have no choice. You got to keep him.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
know,
I agree.
so you wind up trading that second pick for more picks next year to try to move up in the draft next year. So maybe get like a first round pick, the later first round pick and the first round pick next year for somebody who wants to grab maybe Penix or somebody like that.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but in your first pick, you take Marvin Harrison Jr. And there, now all of a sudden, you got the world coming.
Yeah. And
Because
I
now you got
wonder.
Washington who gets Caleb.
Yeah.
Because Caleb's not going to Chicago. There's no chance Caleb goes to Chicago.
Right.
So I think Washington winds up
Not
taking
after
him.
that combine performance where he wouldn't do any medical reports or any of that. I mean, you almost got to feel like we were saying earlier on the show earlier. They were saying like where Caleb Woods was actually drafting himself down or to not go number one, to actually go to another team that he had.
Right. You're saying that he was trying to go to the Raiders, and I was like, okay,
Right.
I can see that, but the Raiders are too far away. That they are number 11 or 10 pick, so it's
Right.
not.
Right.
That's too far down. They'd have to trade up to go get
Right.
him. But that being said, you're right. That's what we were just talking about, Rob. Is that you would have to go. I'm saying about 30 million. You're giving him 30 million a year, and you incentive laden. Yeah, you like, hey, listen, you get us to the playoffs, $2 million bonus. I would go crazy on the bonus structure. Like,
I would
go heavy on the bonus structure, like unheard of numbers, maybe like $2 million. Nobody, like, you always hear about guys getting $500,000 or $1 million, but I never hear guys getting $2 million. Or
Sometimes the
maybe
guy with the
even
Fisher
$3
pole.
million.
You almost got it. You're a little higher. Yeah, but you're actually making him. I like because you're making him earn that contract, Pags. Rather than giving him all that money, you're making him earn that money, and you're going to benefit too, right? Rather than just giving it to him.
Yeah, because obviously it's like you have to do it to get into the playoffs, and
Right.
the further you go in the playoffs, the more money he makes. So it's like that's kind of what it is that I'm talking about. That he has the potential of getting as much as $38 million. You know what I mean?
Your question
$2 million.
about Justin Fields, though. You brought up Justin Fields, and I'm curious. Okay, so if they are stuck with him, but Justin knows that he was on the trade block, it just didn't go through. Does that diminish how much he loves this team or how much he wants to fight for this team? Does it mess with him psychologically in any capacity?
I think they know he's on the trade. He knows he's on the trading block now, anyways. So I got to imagine if it's going to mess with him, it's messing with him now.
Yeah. I think that's
Currently.
another reason why you get rid of him, because you don't want to bring him back because you've already put his name out there. So I don't know if if you're going to have the loyalty or that same fire or whatever. You're going to have to get rid of him and get him completely gone to Atlanta, I would imagine.
Somebody's going to pay him some money. Let's be real. Like I understand what you're saying. Just
Yeah.
take the league minimum. That ain't going to happen. He is still potentially a Hall of Fame quarterback.
And he's still
I don't
got
think
some
he's
young,
I
some
don't
youth
think
to
he's
him.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but I am in the minority from what I'm told. So, but somebody is going to pay him. Somebody is going to pay him some money. So, if you offer him a league minimum with all incentives, I think that either way you're going to have, like, you can't do that. You can't
Is
say,
he
"Hey,
a
listen,
shot rolling
give
type
it
of
to
guy
you're going
where
to
he'll
make
get
$5 million bonus if you make it to the playoffs, and then
right?
5 million for each playoff game you win." You can't do it that way. It's not going to work. The biggest bonus anybody's ever gotten is $1 million,
Right.
for doing something. You change those numbers and make it like 2 million or 2.5 million, even. Like, do something crazy. Say it's 2.5 million if you make it to the playoffs. It's another 2.5 million if you are the league MVP. You know what I mean? And then it's another million if you make it to the NFC Championship game, and it's another 2 million. It's another million if you take us to the Super Bowl, and another million if you win it. So wow, now you've got potentially five, six, seven, $8 million.
Right.
$8 million that you could add on to the contract of 30 million. I think 30 million isn't so bad.
Hell no, 30. Give me 30 million. Damn. Scooby. but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And I am curious to see what they do with this Justin Fields thing and see if he actually does go to Atlanta. I mean, whoever Atlanta gets, whether it be Russell, whether it be a guy like Justin Fields, it sure as hell is better than what they got, Pags. What they got right now is just a bunch of fodder or backups at best.
Well, obviously, and they're going to have to
Yeah.
do something. So I think that like I said, I believe that they don't necessarily want to give up their first round pick for Justin Fields. They say they do, but I don't know that. I don't know that that's really the case.
Right. Right.
And now that Russell Wilson is out there, that gives them a little bit more of an option. Uh, they're going to have Kirk Cousins that's possibly out there too. So that's another possibility. Like, there's just, I think you're going to find another quarterback that's going to wind up getting dropped. That there's going to be three or
Right.
four that are going to be out there that you don't have to take Justin Fields and lose your first round pick. And I
Right.
think that that's going to pigeonhole Chicago.
Yeah. 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 I tell you what, Raheem Morris is going to have his due diligence to do, though, because there's a lot of different ways he can go, and trying to find the right way, especially as this is your first time getting the reins. And let's be honest, like we said earlier, this position, this one position, it really can make you all the way to the top or the bottom, depending on who you put in that quarterback, that QB1 spot. So he's got to really do a lot of homework so he doesn't screw this up, because there's a lot of pressure on that one spot.
Well, I hear you. Yeah, and especially, it's funny because we continually talk about Chicago and Atlanta,
Right.
and obviously because the Saints have their quarterback supposedly, and the Buccaneers have Baker, maybe or maybe not. We don't know if he's going to stay there or not, and so there's a number of quarterbacks that are kind of still out there that you just don't know yet. And we haven't gotten into the legal tampering area yet to find out where people are interested in going.
Let me ask you one quick question, because I know we're almost at the top of the hour. Chicago has had a lot of cap room to work with. They've had a lot of draft picks to work with to try to get this team out of purgatory and make them back to the 1985 Bears or something thereof. What is your opinion? If you had to grade how they've been building this team with all that they've had, the pleasure trophies, I wonder what kind of grade you would give them and why.
Say that again.
So, you know that Chicago has had a lot of draft picks, or have a lot of draft picks to work with. They have a lot of cap room to work with, or have had a lot of cap room to work with. I just wonder how you're grading their rebuild since they've had all this room and draft picks. How you grade them? Like, where do you put them at in their rebuild process?
They should be just about out. Like they should just about be out of that rebuild process. They should be now ready to start to win. And that's part of the problem. That's the problem with Chicago right now is one, the franchise itself is not the same franchise that was the Bears of 1985 into like the 90s and stuff like that. Since the year like 2004 or 5, when they made their final run to the Super Bowl and lost, that they have just fallen apart. They need a new stadium. People aren't really excited to go there. And truth of the matter is that if Chicago actually makes a stadium, when they build their new stadium, football stadium, how do you not make that a dome?
Yeah, or at least a retractable roof.
Yeah, I feel like you almost got to do that. Like it's worthwhile to have the elements out in Chicago because it does get really cold there, and that's part of the allure of being there. But Chicago is a town where they're going to want the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, if you're going to build that stadium, if you're going to spend close to $2 billion or more for a stadium, how do you not put a roof on it?
I've been asking that for a long time now. A long time. I don't know why anybody would build a new stadium these days and not have a retractable roof. I mean, because it gives you options. And why would you not want options?
Right.
Crazy.
I mean, I think about Green Bay and everybody, Lambeau Field is so iconic. Lambeau Field sucks. It sucks to go there. The fans suck. You know what I mean? It's like now, they did build up around the stadium. So it is now more fun to go to that area. But they gouge you for rooms, hotel rooms that are just gouging away. That you get like a third-rate hotel room for $400 a night. It's like and that is like a 2-star. And the reason why there's a star there is because somebody smashed a cockroach in the second star spot. You know what I mean?
I do. I know what you mean.
And that's kind of part of like that whole. When are they going to get a new stadium? I don't want to sit on a bleacher. This ain't college. Lambeau Field can move up. Keep the field. Take the stadium down afterwards. Have them play somewhere else. Have them play in the University of Milwaukee or whatever, University of Wisconsin Stadium, and take down the entire stadium and rebuild it completely or build around it so that you keep the old stadium inside and now you got a bigger stadium and it comes over and it actually so you can keep all that stuff and make a better stadium. So I don't know. And we have a visit by the stat guy. And I tell you, as I look at you right here, it kind of looks like that you're in an orange jumper and you're in jail.
I don't think orange jumpers have an underarm around it.
Yeah, but I tell you, just looking at you with the hair and everything, I was like, damn, is he in jail? Is he calling us from jail here?
Oh my God. Well, that's my cue. I am going to leave you in the comfortable hands of inmate 46729.
So, all right. Well, listen, while we're doing that, we're going to take our commercial break here. Jay leaves us. Stat guy comes in. So we'll be back in just a few moments, and we're going to talk about everything else other than Jason Kelce and Russell Wilson starting here in just a few moments. Please stay tuned. I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Sometimes, all you need to change your life is a sign. A sign that says, "Hank, this is the place you've been looking for." And sometimes that sign is an actual sign that's mounted to a building. One second, I'm looking at a sign. I know what you're thinking, and no, I don't love B-dubs just because I'm a buffalo with wings. Frankly, that's offensive and reductionist. Cause this place, come on. It's like they took beer and made it into a place and then gave that place sports and chicken wings. And the people? Cuba. The best.
Oh! What the is going on, Marty? This isn't a game. This is trivia.
Yeah, this place is kind of like heaven. You know, without needing to get hit by a bus. Let's go, sports bar.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And we are back to the second hour of Coast to Coast. There we are. All right. I wasn't sure if you were stuck or not. You kind of just looked very stoic there as we come back in. We're going to start this second hour off with a couple of things that occurred outside of football. Unless you have anything to say about Jason Kelce and or Russell Wilson,
Jason Kelce will be a first ballot Hall of Famer in 5 years. That's pretty much a done given at this point. Russell Wilson, well, let's just see. I think Russell Wilson will end up in Minnesota since Minnesota tried to get him 2 years ago.
So they're going to stop Cousins, and Cousins is going to wind up somewhere else.
Yep.
If that's the case, where do you think Cousins will go?
Atlanta.
So Cousins goes to Atlanta, and then the whole Chicago effect really becomes. So you have Chicago wind up keeping Fields.
Or trading him to the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. I just don't see that occurring. Like I said, I feel like that you either have to trade him before you get to the draft. If you get to the draft and you haven't traded him yet, then you're going to be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell you, we're getting a number of this. I know that it's not an orange jumpsuit, but it kind of does look like that.
Yeah, I get my one call from jail, so I called you. What the hell?
There you go. That's perfect. And we're going to keep you for as long as we can here during this time. So I want to go talk about this a little bit. The NCAA basketball scoring title is now in somebody else's hands. Caitlin Clark made basketball history, or NCAA basketball history, by scoring that extra foul shot, which made her become the leading scorer in all NCAA. Thoughts?
congratulations to her. I'm not going to take anything away from her. I mean, she is officially the greatest women's college basketball player of all time. And it's a good chance that she's going to go down as one of the greatest women's basketball players ever when she gets down to the WNBA. But it's hard for me to say that she is a better player than Pete Maravich for a couple reasons. Pete Maravich played one less year of college basketball and put up the numbers that he put up in one less year. And Pete Maravich didn't have a three-point line. Caitlin Clark has a three-point line. So if Pete Maravich had a three-point line, how many points would he have had added to the total that he has now? And if he would have played one more year in college, how many more points would he have had added to what he ended up with? I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from her because, yeah, she's the greatest women's college basketball player of all time. She's obviously the greatest scorer in women's college basketball history. But it's hard to compare her to Pete Maravich when it's obviously two different generations, two different eras. One had the three-point line, one didn't. And then obviously with her playing an extra year, it's hard. It's a hard debate, but I'm not going to take anything away from the accomplishment that she had because she's been a joy to watch for the last 4 years, and she's going to continue to be a joy to watch at the next level.
So obviously, she's probably going to be the first pick in the WNBA draft.
Mm-hmm.
Would you choose her as if you had a couple of second-round picks in the NBA draft? Would you take a flyer?
I would. I said that actually this morning to somebody I was talking to this morning. I can't remember who I was talking to, but I said, even if it's a one-year contract, because obviously the physicality of the NBA, she's not going to last with the physicality that the NBA has. But to take her on a one-year flyer, whether it's for the Detroit Pistons, the Washington Wizards, the San Antonio Spurs, or like one of those teams that is so pathetically bad right now, they really have nothing to lose. You add Caitlin Clark to your team, you're going to be bringing people into that stadium because they're going to want to see how she does at the NBA level. And from a shooting side of things, she'd be able to hold her own at the NBA just from a shooting side of things. I think she could average 14 or 15 points just because she can sit out there and knock down 5 3-pointers. But in terms of like longevity, obviously she wouldn't be able to last in the NBA probably more than 4 or 5 years. But for a one-year contract, why not? What do you have to lose?
Right. I think of it as realistically, I see some of the guys that are in the 10, 11, 12 spots, and I think that she would probably be like, she ain't playing them one-on-one, but, with 4 other guys out there and having her there running the point, because really that's what you're doing there. You're going to run. You want her to be a point guard who can shoot on occasion. That's what she'd be doing. She'd be running the point. And I think that she'd be able to last a little bit longer than that. Now, I got her playing maybe 14 minutes a game. Nothing crazy. She's not starting. She's not a starting point guard. But she could, thinking of the Lakers, right now the Lakers could use somebody like her running the point. You know what I mean? I think
So could the Wizards. Or who do the Wizards have?
Well, the Wizards are a train wreck, a complete train wreck. And right now, San Antonio's building around Wemby. So there's a whole different thought process to that. And I don't know that you would want to muddy the waters with her and Wemby.
Yeah.
That being said, you get her in the middle of the mix, like where Indiana, who's, they've got a starting 5. You could put her at the points, in the second group. I think about how the Sixers right now have their starting point and then backup. With Kyle Lowry. So they're not a fit right there. But I think that they could, a better team could use her more efficiently because of the people around her. You put her on a bad team, she's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Just because the team's bad. You put her on a good team, she's going to hold her own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the difference there. I think and I agree with you with the Pistol Pete. Like it's just it's they're two different uh, accounting systems. That's just really the case. So
Yeah.
ultimately, I feel that again, congratulations to her. It was a big accomplishment. Obviously, that record has stood for a very long time for a reason. So it's I'm not taking anything away from her. That being said, I think they're oranges and pineapples. You know what I mean? It's not the same fruit. So, but yeah, I kind of like that, and I do think that if anything, with a team that's got 2 or 3 second round picks, if you were to choose one of those picks, I don't think she deserves a first round pick.
No.
It's like there's too much. Although, let's face it, once you get past 20 in the first round, it's all crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she definitely deserves, I think, a second round pick and bring her out to try out for the team. You know what I mean? Even if she played in the G League, you know what I mean? The G League would be a big deal because now you have your first woman playing in that league.
Yep.
So it's not like she'll make obviously a lot more money in the WNBA.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine that the NBA is going to want her in the WNBA and not in the regular NBA because that would maybe start too much of a stir. But you always got to start somewhere.
Yeah, one thing I would like to see, though, is next year for the NBA All-Star Game, have Caitlin Clark participate in the skills competition and the three-point competition.
With everybody, she competed this year, did she not?
No, Sabrina Ionescu did against Steph Curry one-on-one, but I would like to see her in the actual field of 8 for the three-point competition, just against the guys flat out, and then that skills competition. I think she's a better dribbler and a better passer than some of the people that were in that skills competition. So I think she could hold her own on that too.
I could believe that. I could see that. And I think that there probably is going to be more of that as the NBA is trying everything they can to save the WNBA. I mean, obviously, the WNBA has been a financial loser in the grand scheme of things because there's only so much they could charge for these tickets, I guess. There's a few teams that are doing really well. There's a few teams and the rest of the teams are not. And it's the reason why they don't bring one to Philadelphia is because they just don't feel that the market is ready to bear that. That Philadelphia, they don't want it to fail in Philadelphia.
Right.
And they feel that it would. And that if it fails in Philly, that would almost mark the demise. So rather than do that, they would just rather not. So, it'll be interesting. I'd like to see her get drafted in the second round. I'd love to see her try out for an NBA squad and see where it goes. If they put her to the G League, hey, listen, back in the USFL days, there were players getting drafted by both, the NFL and the USFL.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be ridiculous to get drafted by the NBA and the WNBA. You're the first pick in the WNBA, or you're getting drafted into the NBA. And I think that ultimately the endorsements that would come with being drafted into the NBA would probably be just as much as she's going to get paid in the WNBA.
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah.
So, other than that, the Phillies, some Phillies news. Wheeler signs a 3-year extension for $42 million a year. Worth it?
No. The 3-year extension, I think, is worth it just because he's earned that 3-year extension since he's gotten to Philadelphia. But he's not a better pitcher than Aaron Nola. He's not a better pitcher than, he is a better pitcher than Aaron Nola regular season. I will say that. Playoffs, I think Aaron Nola is a better pitcher in the playoffs than Zach Wheeler, even though Zach Wheeler has pitched really well in the playoffs the last couple of years. But when you look at guys like Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, and the guys that have been getting those $30 million a year contracts. Giving Zach Wheeler $42 million a year is steep. I mean, yes, it is a 3-year deal, but at 34 years old right now, that's a lot of money.
Well, think about Scherzer was 37 and got 47.
Yeah, and I thought that was an overpay on Scherzer too, especially with him having his back fall apart every year.
Same thing with DeGrom. Ridiculous amounts of money.
I'm good with the 3-year extension because it doesn't tie the Phillies to him long term in case something happens. In case he does start to decline, in case he starts to get injured, the Phillies are not tied to him long term yet. They have 3 years on him. But just that $42 million price point, I think was a little much. I think I would have been good with 3 at like 100. So that's like $33 million a year. That kind of puts you right in that.
That was right where he's getting paid now.
Yeah,
he got paid. He got $25 million a year.
Even if you up at $35 million a year, it would be with 3 at 110. That puts you right up in that Scherzer and Verlander conversation. But the $42 million now makes him the highest paid pitcher, basically AAV wise. Now what's the starting pitcher market going to look like when somebody wants an extension if they're giving him 42?
Well, I mean, I think about that, but then I think of Snell, where Snell was supposed to get close to $50 million a year, and now he's looking at possibly signing with the Phillies, from what I understand, for a 1 year with a 2nd year player option.
Yep.
At like somewhere around that $85 million mark for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, first off, I think that's a little bit more ridiculous, but I understand where the Phillies are coming from. The Phillies are going after it this year. Phillies want the World Series. They want to win it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what they're going for. That's what they're trying to do. Everybody is healthy right now so far, and they're going to start the season off 100% healthy and going after the prize. And they're talking about it that way. It's not something that they normally do. It's usually been the one game at a time, and let's make it to the playoffs, and then we'll figure it out from there. And 12 more games to go, things like that. This is a World Series or bust, championship ring or bust team here.
Yeah,
and I like that mentality level. I like that the way that they're doing it. So going after him like that and spending that money. Hey, listen, sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you gotta spend the money here. Yeah, I don't mind $42 million a year because after watching them both pitch, Wheeler has been the better pitcher in comparison to Nola. Nola eats innings, and Nola is a good pitcher. And on most rosters right now, on most good rosters, got teams that have a full five starting rotation, he's most of the time the third guy. He would be the third guy. In Philadelphia, he's the second guy. And bad rotations, he could definitely be a number one. He could be an ace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's because he eats the innings. He's going to pitch somewhere around 275 innings a year. And you can't buy that really. That in itself is worth the money. So but I also kind of believe that he was bad in the playoffs this past year. He did not pitch very well in the playoffs. He did not pitch well last year at all. And that's the problem. Right now he has a good year, he has a bad year. And he'll go streaky in the bad year where he's got spurts of good. So he's worth it, during those time spans. But ultimately, I feel like he gets worn out by the end.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a struggle where Wheeler has been better and has been able to do more in a tired state.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think that just he plays better than Wheeler does right now, or than Nola does right now. Having Snell come on this roster would be pretty good. I would like it for it to be a 1 year, no player option. Hey, we'll give you $40 million this year. Let's see what you can do. You know what I mean? Earn your contract. Since you thought you were worth $200 million, and everybody everybody's fighting against Boris. You know, Scott Boris is losing a lot of power that he had previously, and I think that that's going to continue. And ultimately, he better take what he can get right now because he's still not signed, right? I mean, he's still out
Yeah.
there.
I wouldn't necessarily say that Scott Boras is losing power. I think more so GMs and owners are starting to look at the entire picture. And when you look at Blake Snell, his first 2 years in San Diego, he was arguably the worst pitcher in the National League his first 2 years in San Diego. And even the first month and a half last year, he was not a great pitcher. It was the second half of the season where Blake Snell put it together. So now you have all these teams interested in Blake Snell that are basically sitting there like, why did it take you 2.5 years to reach that level?
Exactly. So, and are you going to stay at that level? That's the other question.
Same thing with Jordan Montgomery, too. Like, Jordan Montgomery, for the most part, has been a 500 pitcher his career. He's 38 and 35 with a 3.62 ERA, which is solid. I mean, it's a good middle of the rotation arm. But it wasn't until the postseason last year when he finally showed what he could do. Because even last year, he was 10 and 11, which is not a great record. His ERA was a 3.2, which was really good. But it was in the playoffs last year when he pitched like an ace. So you have all these other teams are saying, you've been a 500 pitcher your whole career who's been an innings eater, which is great. Every rotation needs an inning eater. But where was your playoff performance your entire career during the regular season?
Yeah, but I look at that. The 3.2 is what I care about. I don't care about wins and losses.
Yeah.
Wins and losses, I mean, what was it? Nola he was like 10 and 14 with a 2.8 ERA a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the ERA, though, for a guy that's always been right around that 3.8, 3.9 range, which is, I mean, it's not great, but it's a good middle of the rotation arm if he's going to give you 6-7 innings per start. All of a sudden, last year he's at a 3.2 with a sub-1 ERA in the playoffs. You have all these teams saying, why did it take you 7-8 years to get to this level?
Well, you got to grow into your arms sometimes. Sometimes you finally put it all together. I mean, obviously, I'm not a pitching coach, but ultimately, I mean, sometimes it takes a minute for pitchers to come out. I agree with you, though, that you do have to look at the full body of work. You can't just go with, oh, yeah, you did great you did great today or yesterday, so I'm going to sign you today. But 3 days ago, you sucked. You know what I mean? So I get that whole thought process. That's why I like the Wheeler signing, because we know what he's been capable of.
Mm-hmm.
He was good with the Mets. He's been good with the Phillies, and he's been consistently good with the Phillies.
Yep.
So there has been no question the fact that he earned that money, and I'm not a big fan of paying it forward. I don't want to give a guy a contract that's over and above what he really deserves. In the, like, I don't want, because you won us a championship. This is what the Phillies did in 2008. Because you guys won us a championship, then we're going to pay you forward. And I don't like that whole idea. You know what I mean? I think that sometimes you have to realize what you got and be able to end with that alone. So, but other than the Phillies, do you see Snell going anywhere?
I'm honestly surprised he hasn't taken that Yankees deal. The 5-year, 150, the reported offer that came out, I think, a week ago. That was the Yankees counter offer to his 9 at 270. He's not going to get a 5-year, $150 million deal from anybody else. So if he cares more about the length of the contract, then yes, he should be signing with the Yankees because they're ultimately the ones that I think are going to give him the biggest deal. But if he cares more about getting more money every year as opposed to the length of the contract, then sign a 1-year, $45 million with the Phillies. Sign a 1-year, $50 million deal with the Mariners or the Giants or somebody else. If you really only care about the money, tell Scott Boras, these are the 4 teams that I want to play for. Call these 4 teams and say, I'll take a 1-year deal for $45, $50 million. But if you care more about having that financial security and a long-term deal, then you'd be foolish not to take that deal that the Yankees gave because you're not going to see another one like it.
I agree, but I don't know why he's not. Then again, some people just don't want to play in New York. I wonder about that because the Astros then said they're not interested anymore. The Red Sox are targeting Montgomery, but Where are the Red Sox at? The Red Sox are
Well,
still.
here's the thing that you just said about that. With Lucas Giolito probably missing the season now with a Tommy John surgery coming, they need to be on the phone right now with Jordan Montgomery and be like, we just lost Lucas Giolito, name your price. Because at this point, their only hope to even have a legitimate starting pitcher in that rotation is to bring in Jordan Montgomery. Because Lucas Giolito was brought in to kind of be that innings eater this year, and now that he's going to be gone, Red Sox don't have an inning eater in their rotation. They at least need one inning eater, and that's what Jordan Montgomery would give them. So with Giolito now being out, and they traded Chris Sale, obviously, to Atlanta earlier in the offseason, Boston doesn't have any choice right now but to go after Montgomery and pretty much give Montgomery, and not necessarily what he's asking for, but a pretty good offer, because otherwise there's going to be some team out there that I think will.
Well, that's the problem. He says that Jordan Montgomery are talking, but him and Scott Boras are not budging on their asking price. And it's if the Red Sox aren't going to go that, if they're going to just stay with that, I mean, this is where I think Scott Boras is making mistakes. You know what I mean? I feel like that you have to work with these teams, or else they're not going to work with you anymore. And ultimately you could have all the best players come to you to be their agent. But if this is where I feel like he's losing some power, because the teams are clapping back. They're like, listen, you've gouged us for so many years now. We're done. We're done with you gouging us. We've had to eat too many bad contracts from your people. So just because you think, and this was the hard part about arbitration. Arbitration is what's caused this.
Yeah.
These inflated, because he batted 275 last year and hit 21 home runs, and now he's worth $23 million a year. Like, no, he's not worth $23 million.
That is the biggest problem that I have with baseball, more so than what these players are getting. It's the whole arbitration system. Every other league, whether it's the NHL, the NBA, or NFL, they give a player a contract. It's a 5-year contract for, let's just say, $50 million. After year 3 of that contract, you're not going like, well, he's about to hit arbitration, so we're going to give him now $64 million this year. No, it's a 5-year deal at $50 million, and you kind of break it down how you want it to be broken down, where you could give him $6 million his first year, $7 million his second year, $8 million his third year, and then the last 2 years of that contract, you can kind of like step the money up. Baseball just needs to get away from this arbitration process, and they just need to be flat out basically say, when you get called up from the minors and you sign a major league contract, it is a 3-year contract. There is no arbitration. There's none of this. It's a 3-year contract for whatever the dollar amount is that you agree upon, and you can structure it any way you want and then hit free agency. Because arbitration at this point is basically locking a player in for a minimum 7 years with the team. Because you have your 4-year entry-level contract, and then you have the option year in year 5, and then you have the 2 arbitration years after that. So you're locking a player into your team for 7 years to begin with. But after that 5th year, for the most part, you have no idea what that player is going to cost, because the arbitration numbers go up every single year based on their performance. And they could be making $17, $18 million a year when they're realistically only a $10 million a year player. And then all of a sudden they get the free agency and they're going to expect $20, $25 million.
Right. And that's, like I said, I feel like it's so convoluted, because you're getting not a great player, but like I said, it's because it's based off of, hey, well, this guy's getting paid this much already, and he had a down season, and that down season equates to the fact that he, it's like going to court and citing a law from, 30 years ago, or setting a precedent from 30 years ago that's no longer worth it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, but this is what happens now in Major League Baseball. And that's why some of these prices are so high. And I think that's part of the reason on why the owners are starting to, be like, okay, enough's enough. We can't have, after the Mets spent $360 million last year to just be average, really even be below average. is really what it was. It was below average. That kind of said it all. It was just like, listen, you can't buy World Series anymore. It's no longer feasible that way. And too many egos, you know, too many egos in the house make for an ugly house. It's just the house gets torn apart. Look at the Padres from a couple years ago.
Yep.
That's the reason why they didn't go anywhere. Because everybody's fighting with everybody else. But I don't know. I'm interested to see if he's going to wind up going anywhere.
I honestly think, and I did a column on this yesterday, I think Jordan Montgomery is going to end up in Chicago for some reason. Because if you remember the Cody Bellinger press conference, Jed Hoyer made a joke to Scott Boras and basically said, you should have brought your other client here with you and we could have did a similar contract. And kind of Scott Boras laughed at it and everyone just thought they were kind of just joking, kind of like shooting the shit. But there is something behind that because Jed Hoyer and Jordan Montgomery have been talking for a while. And I could very easily see a scenario where Montgomery gets a 3-year, $100 million contract with an opt-out after year 1 and year 2 like Cody Bellinger.
Okay. Yeah, which makes sense for him. You know what I mean? Saying, okay, we're going to
prove it again that he's worth $30 million.
What is he asking for? What are they asking for? What's their asking price? They're not budging for?
I think I heard it was at 6 at 170 or 5 at 150. So he's asking roughly $30 million a year. So give him the 3 years, 100, which is basically $33 million a year. If he wants to opt out after year 1 because he had a good year, so be it. If he wants to stay in Chicago, he's still getting $33 million a year.
I can't stand all these opt-outs. That's again, it's another way Scott Boras has killed this game.
Yep.
It's and he takes credit for it. He goes, I was the one that came up with that. Like, yeah, let's do the player option. Used to be team options all the time. The team gets to make some decisions here.
And the big reason why I think Boras got away with that, and this is the only thing that I'm going to give him credit for on this, is because when you have a team option, a player could have a horrendous season because they deal with an injury. And then that team can literally be like, you had a bad year, we're not picking up your option, so best of luck in the free agent market. Versus now you have a player that signs a 3-year deal where he could tear his ACL the first play of the season. Well, obviously he's going to opt into that second year because he never had a fair shot to prove his worth on that contract. So then he takes that second year, plays at an MVP level, and then he opts out and hits the free agent market. So then it's like you really didn't cost the team anything. You just kind of protected yourself a little bit because you finally got a fair shake versus if he would have signed a 3-year deal with that team option. If he tears his ACL that first play of the season, team's not going to keep him. And then it's kind of like, so now my free agent value just went down the toilet because I never had a chance to really show what I could do.
Yeah, what I don't like about those is that, yeah, I can understand how that works, but I kind of feel that with every option that a player gets, the team should also get. Not necessarily in the same year. Like, okay, and at what point, like obviously, for instance, when we signed Bryce Harper, there's no options. Neither. No player, no team options. So here you are, you're stuck here.
You're stuck here until they trade you or until you retire.
Correct. Which I kind of like. I like the idea that maybe they should cap them. For instance, you can only ever have 2 options in the contract. And after 5 years of a contract, there can only be 1 option. And that's that. So you're stuck. It's, contract. They're making it so that the contracts don't mean anything. They're trying to make contracts like they do in football. But the collective bargaining agreement is much different in baseball than it is in football. So, because if it was anything like football, we'd have a lot of players probably not playing. And that's, ultimately, I think that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I guess you could say that for the NFL, the franchise tag is essentially kind of like the arbitration.
Well, no, I feel like the franchise tag is more like it's not like arbitration. That's like the team option. That's a team option.
Because doesn't that go up every year though? The franchise tag.
It goes. So the first time you do the franchise tag, it's the average of the top 5 players in the league. The second time you use the franchise tag, it's top player in the league. You can only use it twice.
Yeah.
On the same player.
That's kind of why I kind of say that's kind of their version of an arbitration system, just because it's not really a fair assessment of what the player's worth. They're just getting it based off of the top 5 players, or the second time you franchise it, it's based off of the top player.
Yeah, a little bit. But if you're franchising somebody 2 times in a row because you can't come together on a contract, he deserves to be the highest paid player in that position.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I like that. I like that thought process. And like I said, I feel that, listen, the teams hold all the power in the NFL. That's why all these players, that was what caused him to get a fully guaranteed contract. Not Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's literally why he was able to do that, because it's like, hey, you could drop me at any moment in time. So why would I accept that? And of course, he started the trend, and now they're going away from that trend completely, because now you have Denver going with the highest amount of cap hit ever. $85 million they're going to wind up eating. I think that's awesome.
They should call the Dodgers and figure out how to defer that over 10 years.
Well, the state of California is not allowing them to do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what they think, they're doing. They're not doing it. That all being said, no, you take your hit. And the Eagles were the first one to do it. Obviously, a few years ago when they did it with Carson Wentz, it was the biggest cap hit to date. And then it became, I think, Atlanta that had the biggest cap hit. Now it's $85 million. So they have $170 million to spend on their team this year in comparison to everybody else. Everybody's playing with a $255 million roster. They're playing with a $170 million roster.
Mm-hmm.
And that means they got to kick the can down the road a certain amount, depending on, how long they want to kick it. Truth of the matter is I wouldn't kick it very far at all.
Nope.
That's why I think you get Drew Lock, who is going to be at the, you could sign him for maybe $25-30 million. So now if you're at 150, you're at 125, and your free agent pool is old guys.
Did you say Drew Lock?
Yeah.
He's in Seattle.
No, he's a free agent.
Didn't Seattle bring him back on a 1-year deal?
No, I thought they did that with
because I know Geno's in his 3-year deal. I thought they brought in Drew Lock as a 1-year deal again to back him up.
I didn't hear that, but let me check now.
Yeah, they have him they said he's on the Seattle Seahawks right now as his current team. On a 1-year, $4 million contract.
1 year, $4 million?
Yep.
No. Why would he have done that? That sounds so ridiculous. Yeah, I don't see anything about that whatsoever.
Because I think it was his 5th-year option that Seattle picked up.
There we go. Is Drew Lock a free agent? No, he's a free agent.
Oh.
It says that he hasn't signed yet. I mean, I don't. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it signed, so I don't know. Yeah, 4
Well, if he
years,
wants
7
to go,
million.
if he wants to go back to Denver, he could.
Yeah, so March 16th, 2023, they agreed on a 1-year deal worth $4 million.
Okay, so then that
So it
would
was
be for
almost a
last.
year ago. Almost a year ago. Right now, he is not. He's not in there.
Well, if he wants to go back to Denver, he could. I don't know if he will.
Well, like it says, I'm thinking about just trying to get a quarterback cheaply. Like you're stuck now. You
Go
can't.
get Carson Wentz.
That's also a possibility. You can get him for probably $18 million. But do you want somebody else like that? Is that what you want to try to do? I mean, he's the one thing that you can say about Carson Wentz is that everywhere he's gone, he has been some type of issue in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to bring, another guy into the locker room that you had, you just got rid of one that was supposedly a problem in the locker room?
I mean, if I'm Sean Payton, I would go after somebody that I spent 1 year with. If I'm Sean Payton, I would go after Jameis Winston.
That Winston's another one. That was the one I mentioned him earlier. I'm like, that might be somebody worthwhile who you could probably get at $15 million.
You'd sign him for you'd sign him for like a 2-year, $30 million deal, at least to kind of be your bridge quarterback to figure out what you want to do going forward.
Yeah, I actually look at that more as, I would only sign him for 1 year. But I guess you could kind of go for 2. At $15 million, you could drop him and it not like, as long as it's not guaranteed, you're guaranteed that first year, guaranteeing you $15 million. That's it. You know what I mean? And then ultimately that second year is all option. And make it both ways. You could do it player and team.
Mm-hmm.
So that everybody's got to agree to be at that spot. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I guess the other thing you could do is how much is Fields making? Could they become a player in that market?
Let me look that up because I was talking about that this morning. This year they could. It's next year that they couldn't. Justin Fields is scheduled to make $11 million this year. But if he ends up picking up that 5th-year option, it'll be $27 million next year.
Still cheap. And actually, you need the $11 million this year. That becomes almost a landing spot for him now.
Yeah.
At $11 million a year, that's a great stop for him because ultimately that kills two birds, gives you a top flight quarterback, and then ultimately it gives you the cap space to go after some people.
Mm-hmm.
And your first round pick there for where are they picking?
12 or 13, something like that.
Yeah, so that's not even a great spot unless you're going after like a Penix. And hopefully you get Penix at that. But I don't know. Simmons from Denver. I didn't hear anything about that. What's he, a safety? I don't even know who Simmons is.
Justin Simmons, he's either a linebacker or a safety.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that they are going to actually invest some draft capital for a linebacker. And I'm not talking trade. I'm talking that they're going to actually draft linebackers that can stay here for a couple of years. So I think they realize now that they need a quarterback on the defense that's not a cornerback.
Yep.
And you need a middle linebacker and you need a free safety. Those are the two spots that you absolutely have to have right now if you're the Eagles. The truth of the matter is, if you had those two positions, we probably wouldn't have had half of the problems on defense that we did.
No. especially not late in the season when the secondary is actually getting torched.
So, what's up, Josh? Good to see you. I appreciate that you still are the sexy beast that you are. So he kind of looks like you with the bald head. Probably not so much of the orange jumper suit, but depends on how bad he's been lately. But the other thing that's happened in the last 15 minutes that's going to be happening here by Friday is the NHL trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And rumors are swirling, but no movement yet, which is a surprise. I thought that there'd be some pieces that are going to happen early and that it was going to start the movements. The later that it goes, the longer that it takes for it to start, the less teams that are going to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Are we finding out that maybe teams are asking too much for the players they have?
I think yes and no, but now I think you have certain teams that are also going to have to recess. And I'll use the Detroit Red Wings as an example because we talked about this last week, how I felt Detroit needed to either go get another goalie or some defensive help. Well, now you just lost to your captain, Dylan Larkin, 2 to 3 weeks with a leg injury. So now you're going to have to recess your plans. Do we go after a goalie or a defenseman, or do we go after like a second-line center or a first-line winger to help the scoring? So now you hear the names Tarasenko and Jakob Ginsel being mentioned to go to Detroit, which I would love either one of them. I would prefer Tarasenko more because he's going to cost less. But now you have certain teams, I think, that have to reassess kind of what their initial deadline plans were and now kind of figure out, well, should we stand pat or should we kind of switch our mindset and go after this? Because I think Detroit now is more so – I had Detroit being very aggressive in terms of getting help on the defensive side of the ice, whether it was goalie or whether it was defense. But now I think Yzerman's looking at this Larkin injury, and I think they're either going to either stand pat and not do anything, or they're going to add something on the offensive side to at least counteract the Larkin injury right now.
Well, and I kind of think, and I understand like where they're going with that, but how much of a run do you think Detroit is able to make this year? And how much are they willing to invest to think that they can do further than what is exceed the expectation?
That's kind of why I said I would rather have Tarasenko because he's a free agent after this year, and you wouldn't have to give up as much to get him. And if he gets you into the playoffs this year, then you're setting yourself up next year. But the one name that I guess is being talked about a lot more now is Ginsel from Pittsburgh because he's got this year plus 2 more years of that contract. So he'd be more so of that long-term investment. Yes, it would cost you a lot more money, or not more money, but a lot more assets to get him. But with Patrick Kane only on that 1 year, $2.5 million deal, there's no guarantee that Patrick Kane is going to come back next year. So by adding Ginsel, at least you would have him as your insurance policy to replace Patrick Kane. You still have Alex DeBrincat lined up for another 5 years. Dylan Larkin just signed his 7-year extension. So you would have your front line at least set for the next 2 years after this year to help him make a deeper run later on.
So, you know what? I'm gonna talk to you real quickly about some bubble teams. You could tell me whether you think that they would be buyers or sellers here. You know, obviously, Tarasenko is on the Senators. I'm surprised that I keep hearing his name, and we're not hearing Giroux's name. Which is a surprise to me. But I mean, I guess they going to keep him up there until he retires. Is that what they're thinking?
I think it's more so Claude Giroux is like the heart and soul of that team, and I think it's more so they're waiting for him to tell them when he wants to leave, as opposed to they're going to shop him.
So, all right, the Islanders, 3 points out of the playoffs, but I don't think they're really going to catch the Lightning. The Lightning is, they're holding that last spot. Are they 3 points out?
They're 6 points out. They're
6 points out, yeah.
fully.
Because you guys are tied. You guys are tied now.
Yeah.
From that, and they're 6 points out of the third spot with the Flyers that the Flyers are holding. So You have them, and then the Capitals and the Devils, all within 2 points of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Devils just fired Ruff.
So I think the Devils will be sellers because they just fired Lindy Ruff, unless their new coach comes in and all of a sudden they go 2-0 the next 2 games with their new coach, and all of a sudden now you're at 68 points and you're only 4 points out. I think that'll determine what they do on Friday.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they say that they're looking for a goaltender, but they don't want to get rid of their goaltender. The Capitals are starting to make a little bit of a push here.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me with the Capitals is their lack of point production. They can't score.
Yep,
right
and
now.
that's to me. I feel like they should be in the market for scoring help, but I think they're going to stand pat and not really do anything because Alex Ovechkin is having a down year in terms of what he typically does, and everybody in the NHL has seen what an Alexander Ovechkin hot streak can do. So all of a sudden, if he gets hot for 1 month of the season, well, Capitals aren't going to need any scoring because he's going to provide it for you.
Would you ever consider trading him?
At this point, no. If they miss the playoffs this year and then they're in a position where they're going to miss the playoffs next year, then I would. But because he's having a down year this year, which is realistically, I think the first time you can say that he's actually having a bad year, I think you're going to kind of at least give him the benefit of the doubt on that because of how good and consistent he's been his entire career. Age might be catching up to him finally because he's like 38, I believe, or 37. So I think you want to at least see kind of how he rebounds next season. If it's something similar to what he's doing this year, then I could definitely see him being traded. But I think this is just one of those years where he's having a down year, and yet the team is still in position to possibly get in the playoffs. So it's not like they're in a terrible spot yet.
Got you. How about the Blues, Calgary, or Seattle? They're 5 points. Well, Seattle is as much as 7 points out, but the Blues are 5 points out. They have a couple of interesting players on their team that might be Kevin Hayes being one of them.
Yep. And that was one of the names that I mentioned with Detroit was Kevin Hayes because he's a defensive player, which
Right.
Detroit needs, and he's locked up for another 4 years, so that would at least solidify your defense for the next 4 years. St. Louis Blues had somebody the Red Wings were supposedly looking at too, I believe. Pavel Buchnevich. Pavel Buchnevich was mentioned with Detroit. He's another one that's going to be a free agent after next year, so he'd be a guy that you would have for this year and then next year as well. So he'd cost a little bit more, but at least it gives Detroit a nice second-line winger that can at least score. I mean, I could see all those – Calgary, St. Louis, and Seattle all being sellers, but I could also see them buying as well. I think they could sell and add at the same time. Like I could see St. Louis getting rid of Buchnevich, but then adding other pieces. I could see Calgary getting rid of Kevin Hayes, but then adding other pieces. And the same thing for Seattle. I could see them getting rid of maybe 1 or 2 players from their current roster, but also trading for maybe 1 or 2 players just to kind of keep them competitive throughout the season.
Yeah, I just see this is what makes me believe that because a lot of those players that you're mentioning actually have like multiple year contracts, specifically with the Blues. The Flames, I feel like the Flames are always in this same position. Sometimes they're a little bit higher, sometimes they're not, but you know, they are not. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think that this is a common thing for them. They make the playoffs one year, they have poor goalie play the following year, and that's kind of what brings them down. Do you see anybody really making a really strong play across the board? You know, like I think as I look at here and I think of Vancouver being they're the best team right now in the West, which is really ridiculous to me. The fact that the Panthers are the best team in hockey also is a little ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
And I know that they are slated to be looking for, you know, help at center. You know, that was the other person that you were talking about that was really looking for coming from Ottawa. Who's that? The center over there.
Tarasenko?
Yeah. That they are linked to him as well. and also the Lightning trying to get that. But the Lightning is the funny ones because they have that injury reserve list that's going to come out and start playing because they like to take advantage of the guys that haven't played all year long, and now all of a sudden they're going to come back to play.
Yeah. If there is a team that I think could make a big deal, I think it's Edmonton. You look at how poorly Edmonton started. They're the hottest team in the NHL right now. I believe they're 25-6 in their last 31 games.
Yeah, the problem I have with Edmonton is if you have somebody who's a defensive forward and you put them on Connor McDavid, you take away most of the point production. That's what it comes down to. That's why the Flyers have always played Connor McDavid pretty well.
Yeah.
Is that he's, you put somebody on him specific like Couturier, who is one of the best, defensive, centers in the league, that they are going to fail. And that's what's been going on. They've been failing a lot. So I don't trust Edmonton to get past. If they do anything, they got to go after a real goalie who could maybe pull them along. So, which is why I think maybe the Islanders, they're saying they're not selling at the deadline, but I don't know. Maybe they could because Vasilevsky, not Vasilevsky, Sorokin, I think is somebody who actually could play well enough for another team.
Yeah, and they also have Brock Nelson. They also have Anders Lee. Both those guys are very capable players that can hop into any team for the most part, either be a first or second line guy that are going to give you production.
Right. But I think of the goalie because they actually have a pretty good goalie in their backup system as well. So
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the reason why I think that, but we'll have to see if anything really does happen. But like I said, I'm just surprised that nothing has happened up to this point. The fact that we just spent 15 minutes of all possibilities or none that could possibly occur.
I think once the first deal happens, I think everything else will kind of fall in place after that. I think right now every team is kind of, they know what they want to do. They have a feeling of who they want to get. I think they're just waiting for someone to make that first move. And once that first move is made, then I can see them, like all the moves coming after that. It's just that they don't want to be the first team to make that move. Kind of like when you're dating a woman, you don't want to be the first person to make a move. You want them to make that move first. I think that's kind of what the NHL is kind of doing. Like you have all these teams like, we know what we want. We know what we need to be a contender. We just don't want to pull the trigger first because we don't want to overpay. We want to see what somebody actually is giving up for a person of said, like for Tarasenko, for example. We want to see what somebody gives Tarasenko before we come out and actually overpay for somebody. Maybe if they overpay for Tarasenko, then we know what we got to give up for somebody else.
Right. Yeah, just like it's setting the market. They're setting the market on what's worth the trade. So, well, anyways, we are at the top of the hour. So, thank you, Stat Guy, for coming in and pitching relief for Jay there as he went off to go do some stuff. Who knows what he was really doing. He's back on assignment. Bo will be back tomorrow, and we'll be doing another show here from Miami, hopefully from a better confines than what you see behind me because it just looks like my apartment, which is not my apartment in the first place. But everybody, thank you for hanging with us today, and we will see you guys tomorrow at the same time. Have a great day.